Why would I want a new car? Datsun runs great. I don't want anything.
Everything has to be difficult.
So you're a leather now.
I'm a leather?
Yeah, leather tramp. That's what they call the ones that hoof it.
Don't you think?
There are some stories that don't simply unfold on screen, but linger long after the final frame fades. Stories that quietly challenge the way we think about freedom, identity, and the meaning of a life well lived. This is one of those stories, a deeply introspective journey that follows a young man who appears, on the surface, to have everything: intelligence, opportunity, a promising future, yet chooses to walk away from it all in pursuit of something far less tangible, yet far more profound. The film traces the path of Christopher McCandless, a recent graduate whose decision to abandon the conventional path of success becomes both an act of rebellion and a search for truth. At the beginning, Christopher exists in a world that many would consider ideal. He graduates from Emory University as a top student and accomplished athlete, admired for his discipline and potential. His parents see a future filled with achievement, perhaps law school or a prestigious career, something structured and respectable. But beneath that polished surface lies a growing dissatisfaction, a quiet unrest that refuses to be ignored. The expectations placed upon him feel suffocating, the material comforts around him feel hollow, and the relationships in his life, particularly with his family, carry tensions that are never fully resolved, but deeply felt. There is a sense that the life mapped out for him is not truly his own. What makes his decision so striking is not just that he rejects this life, but how completely he does it. He doesn't simply take a break or go on a temporary journey. Instead, he makes a deliberate choice to detach himself from everything that defined his identity in modern society. He donates his entire savings of $24,000 to charity, cuts ties with his past, and sets out on a journey with little more than a desire to experience life in its rawest, most unfiltered form. It's a radical act, one that seems both inspiring and deeply unsettling depending on how you look at it. As he begins his travels, adopting the name Alexander Supertramp, the film shifts into a rhythm that mirrors the unpredictability of the road. His journey is not linear or neatly structured. It unfolds through a series of encounters and experiences that feel almost episodic, yet are connected by a deeper thematic thread. Each person he meets becomes a reflection of a different way of living, a different perspective on what it means to find happiness or purpose. One of the most compelling aspects of his journey is how he affects the people he meets as much as they affect him. There's a sincerity in his character, a kind of openness that draws others in. He listens, observes, and engages with a level of authenticity that feels rare. Yet at the same time, there is a distance within him, a reluctance to form lasting attachments. It's as if he's constantly moving, not just physically, but emotionally, unable or unwilling to fully root himself in any one place or relationship. The people he encounters are not just side characters, they are essential to understanding his journey. They offer glimpses into lives that are grounded in connection, resilience, and compromise, things he seems both searching for and running from. Some see him as a free spirit, someone brave enough to break away from societal norms. Others see a kind of naivety in his choices, a lack of understanding about the realities of survival and the importance of human connection. There's a recurring tension throughout the story between idealism and reality. Christopher is deeply influenced by the writings of authors who romanticize nature and individualism, and he embraces these philosophies with a kind of fervor. He believes in the purity of the natural world, in the idea that true happiness can be found outside the constructs of society. But as his journey progresses, the film subtly begins to question this belief, not by dismissing it outright, but by showing its limitations. His time on the road is filled with moments of beauty and discovery. There are scenes where the vastness of the landscape seems to mirror the expansiveness of his thoughts, where the silence of nature offers a kind of clarity that is difficult to find in the noise of everyday life. He experiences a sense of freedom that is both exhilarating and intoxicating. In these moments, it's easy to understand why he chose this path, why the idea of living unbound by societal expectations holds such appeal. But alongside this beauty, there is also hardship. Survival in the wilderness is not romantic in the way books might suggest. It requires knowledge, preparation, and respect for the environment, things that Christopher, despite his intelligence, does not fully possess. The film does not shy away from the consequences of this. Hunger, isolation, and the unpredictability of nature begin to take their toll, slowly stripping away the idealism that fueled his journey. What makes this descent so powerful is that it is not sudden or dramatic. It unfolds gradually, almost quietly, mirroring the way real life often works. There is no single moment where everything changes. Instead, it is a series of small realizations, small shifts in perspective that accumulate over time. The confidence that once defined him begins to waver, replaced by moments of doubt and introspection. One of the most poignant elements of the story is the way it explores the concept of happiness. At the beginning, Christopher seems to believe that happiness is something that can be found in isolation, in the rejection of societal norms and material possessions. He sees relationships as potentially restrictive, something that might hold him back from achieving true freedom. But as his journey progresses, this belief is challenged in subtle yet significant ways. The connections he forms, even if temporary, reveal a different side of happiness, one that is rooted in shared experiences and emotional bonds. There is a warmth in these interactions, a sense of belonging that contrasts sharply with the solitude he ultimately chooses. It raises an important question. Can happiness truly exist in isolation, or is it something that inherently requires connection with others? By the time he reaches Alaska, the culmination of his journey, there is a sense that he has both found what he was looking for and lost something essential along the way. The wilderness he once idealized becomes both a sanctuary and a prison. It offers the purity and simplicity he sought, but also confronts him with the harsh realities of survival and the limits of his own independence. The final stages of his journey are marked by a profound sense of introspection. Stripped of the distractions and comforts of society, he is left alone with his thoughts, forced to confront the choices he has made and the path he has taken. It is here that the film reaches its emotional core, not through dramatic confrontation, but through quiet realization. There is a moment of clarity that emerges, one that redefines everything that came before it. It's not presented as a grand revelation, but rather as a simple, deeply human understanding that carries immense weight. It suggests that the search for meaning is not just about escaping the world, but about understanding one's place within it. The tragedy of his story is not just in its outcome, but in the way it highlights the delicate balance between freedom and connection, independence and belonging. Christopher's journey is both inspiring and cautionary, a reminder of the courage it takes to break away from convention, but also of the importance of understanding the consequences of that choice. What lingers most is not a sense of judgment, but a sense of reflection. The film does not tell you what to think or how to feel. Instead, it invites you to consider your own values, your own definition of happiness, and the paths you choose in your own life. It challenges the idea that there is a single right way to live, while also acknowledging that every choice carries its own set of trade-offs. The performances throughout the film add layers of depth to this exploration. The portrayal of Christopher captures both his idealism and his vulnerability, making him a character who is easy to admire, yet difficult to fully understand. The supporting characters bring warmth and authenticity to the story, grounding it in a sense of reality that contrasts with Christopher's more philosophical outlook. The direction emphasizes this duality, blending sweeping, almost poetic visuals with intimate, character-driven moments. The use of natural landscapes is not just aesthetic, but thematic, reinforcing the idea of nature as a source of inspiration and a force that demands respect. The pacing allows the story to breathe, giving space for reflection and immersion rather than rushing from one plot point to the next. Music also plays a crucial role, underscoring the emotional journey without overpowering it. It complements the tone of the film, enhancing the sense of solitude, wonder, and introspection that defines Christopher's experience. The combination of visuals, performance, and sound creates an atmosphere that feels both expansive and deeply personal. As the story comes to a close, there is no sense of resolution in the traditional sense. Instead, there is a quiet, lingering impact that stays with you. It's the kind of story that doesn't end when the credits roll, but continues to unfold in your thoughts long after you watch it. You find yourself revisiting certain moments, certain ideas, trying to make sense of them in the context of your own life. Ultimately, this is a story about the search for meaning in a world that often feels overwhelming and contradictory. It's about the desire to strip away the unnecessary and find something real, something authentic. But it's also about the realization that meaning is not something that can be found in isolation, that it is shaped by our relationships, our experiences, and the connections we choose to embrace. Christopher McCandless's journey is not presented as a blueprint to follow, but as a question to consider. What does it mean to truly live? Is it about freedom, independence, and self-discovery? Or is it about connection, responsibility, and shared experience? The film doesn't provide a definitive answer, and perhaps that's the point. It leaves the question open, inviting each viewer to find their own answer. And in that ambiguity lies its greatest strength, because it reflects the complexity of life itself, messy, unpredictable, and deeply personal. It reminds us that the search for meaning is not a destination, but a journey, one that is shaped as much by the people we meet as by the paths we choose to walk alone.